and welcome back. We've been taking calls continuously on just about all our cases tonight, as far as I can tell. And we have more people taking calls than you can see here in the studio as well. Detectives investigating the murder of Murray Erskine have been inundated with information both here and at the incident room, and calls are still coming in. So far, an optimistic mood here.
And of course, it's photocall that always gets a good response. Let's see how good it's been tonight. David Hatcher, let's start, London wine fraud? That's how you start on the main programme?
Indeed, yes. And no disappointment tonight either, Nick. A really tremendous response. First of all, we were looking for Peter Mayer and Saeed Elmanor. Well, we've had sightings of them phoned into us, but none recently, so anybody who knows where they are now. At the moment, that's the least hot news, if you like.
All right. What about, let's get hotter, what about the guy who was holding people up, robbing, and tended to wear a camouflage jacket, a combat jacket?
That's right, yes, and he was operating mostly in the Midlands area. Well, we've had a couple of names and addresses suggested for the Birmingham area, which looks promising. We've also had a number of calls from the south and southwest of England, so it may well be that we've got a connection down that end that we didn't know about.
OK, Peter Preston wanted in connection with a deception inquiry.
Yes, alleged sightings all over the country. We've even had sightings allegedly of, or one sighting of him using that white Volvo today. And also information about where that car might be now, and that's being followed up now.
What about the robber you call the shady robber, the one wearing sunshades, sunglasses?
Yes, we've had a request to see that still again. Well, there it is. And that caller gave us a name and address, and that's being followed up. But there are a couple of other names and addresses that could be promising, so we're keeping our fingers crossed. Two of those calls, incidentally, are connected.
Fine. What about Gary Thompson?
Well, 24 calls here and 10 to Stevenage, and that's given us information about other similar incidents. There's also a suggestion that Gary could be using the name Lee Edwards or Andrew Brown. But remember, he's the guy who went missing in those pyjamas and often walks about with a plaster cast on his foot or crutches. And we've had a number of sightings that link in with information that we already had.
But as you say, it all looks pretty promising. Sue.
Well, now the armed gunman who robbed a security van outside the Nationwide Anglia Building Society in Palmer's Green in North London shortly before midnight on Thursday, April the 5th. Moments later, two plainclothes policemen on night duty saw a car speeding recklessly across a junction. Well, both officers have suffered from severe shock, and one of them isn't yet able to resume his duties. Mr. Patrick, you've been taking calls. What have you had?
Yes, I'm pleased with the response. We've got a witness who may have seen the robbers hanging about at the triangle, which is good, and we'll obviously take a statement from him tomorrow. We've had names put forward, which I appeal for, so I'm pleased, but keep the calls coming.
I know you've had one particularly interesting call, but you can't give the details at the moment. What you really do need is to talk to the motorist who flagged down a police van that evening when he'd seen two men running across the traffic in Powys Lane.
Yes, he's a crucial witness. He may be able to give us a better description. Please pick up the phone and talk to us, and we do really need to talk to him.
Yes, if you've just come back, if you've been out for the evening, he was driving a dark Ford Escort, wasn't he? You do feel, finally, that there is a degree of urgency in finding these men, don't you?
So they're dangerous. This, as I said already, could easily have been a murder inquiry. They may strike again, and it could be members of the public, so they need arresting, and quickly.
Mr. Patrick, thank you.
Our next case is the murder of a Bank of England economist, Murray Erskine, who disappeared a few days before Christmas. Detectives have been anxious to trace everyone who knew him, especially a couple that he used to meet in the Norland Arms in London's Notting Hill, and a man called the Rhodesian. Now, tell me, Laurie Vanna, I know there's been, in terms of volume, a tremendous response. What about in terms of quality, though?
Well, you're right. We've had 80-plus calls. That was the last chance I had of counting it. In fact, the amount of information here, I really haven't had the opportunity to go through it in any detail yet, but several of the calls look most hopeful.
What sort of calls in particular?
Well, we've had one. There was a name in the diary, one of Mr. Erskine's diary, had a Rhodesian connection. We were unable to trace that man. We've had two calls that are possibly putting us onto that. We've had many calls putting names to the photo fits.
Let's just have a look at the video fits. That's the man who was seen in the pub in the Norland Arms, and we've got a video fit too of the man who hired a car in central London. And you've got names put to this, a large volume of names, actually.
A lot of names have been put to them, some of them similar names, and obviously all of which we'll work through.
I saw an Irish connection a couple of people put forward. Is that any...?
That's correct. We had one particular call that looks most hopeful. They gave us the Rhodesian, a Dutch connection. In fact, they were very specific about Holland, and also an Irish connection, something that we had been looking at.
OK, this is the Seiko Yachtmaster Sports 150 watch that's was bought on the stolen access card from Murray Erskine in conjunction with this, a mock leather cover. And interestingly enough, you've had very few calls on this watch.
We had a number of calls, in fact, but people have asked to see the watch again. Obviously, the watch is very striking, as you can see from the front. It is a yacht timer, it's a specialist piece.
OK, there are very few of them around. Laurie, thank you very much.
Well, now incident desk, and Jackie, the first case was in St Helens, a raid on Heaton's Removals in which children's clothing and microwave ovens were stolen. Any news?
The officers here have taken 12 calls and the incident room at St Helens have taken 10. All these calls are giving possible names for the 4 suspects, but are yet nothing very encouraging. However, 2 people have called to say they've been offered the children's clothing within a 5-mile radius of St Helens, so fingers crossed there.
Right, could be a lead there. And people have asked if we can hear the tape recording of the voice again, so let's have that.
Hello, can I help you?
Hello, yeah. Could you listen to me very carefully, please?
I'm listening.
Right, the watchman at Eaton's Transport.
Yeah.
Just got back to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Side up. Okay.
Well, if you think you recognise that voice, give us a ring. The next case was indecent assaults in Essex in the Basildon area.
We've had a very impressive reaction to this item. Over 42 calls to the studio and they're still coming in, I'm glad to say. One extremely good one, I wish I could give more details, but the officer's very happy about it and perhaps there's good news next month.
Perhaps we should see his video fit again. We have a description.
Yes, his description is that for suspects is that they wear stocking masks, jeans and white trainers.
Right. Now, there's an attack on the post office manager at Leigh-on-Sea, during which the manager was stabbed in the leg. Any news on that?
Yes, we've received 8 calls to the studio and 6 to the station in Essex, all giving different names for the suspects. The information will be investigated and one of them perhaps is our man. We're going to show the fit again, and this man is, as you can see, is 6 foot 25 years with possibly permed hair. Perhaps somebody saw him on the 9th of February near the Blue Sierra, which was abandoned in Santanica Road, Westcliff-on-Sea.
Jackie, thank you very much. Nick.
Finally, tonight, the murder of Dr. David Burkitt, a consultant dermatologist at his home in Middlesbrough. It was a curious case in which the killer, or maybe it was an accomplice, phoned the police on the night of the murder and seems to want to give them clues to his identity. Now, Brian, I know you've had quite a volume of calls again on this one.
Yes, we've had a good response. We've had in excess of 50 calls, and many about the person who was seen near the telephone kiosk in Union Street.
OK, here's the video fit. Let's just have a look at the person. Maybe quite unconnected with the crime, but you really need this man to call in or be identified.
Yes, we've been given suggestions as to his identity, and obviously throughout the course of tonight and tomorrow we'll be checking those suggestions.
Now, you were sent a letter which was possibly a hoax, but unlikely, since the writer seemed to know something about the home of Dr. Burkitt and Dr. Burkitt himself. You've been able to identify this poem, and a lot of people rang up about that.
Yes, and I'd like to thank the viewers for doing so. We've now confirmed that that particular section comes from a book. We've confirmed that.
OK, well, let's
We're obviously still interested in the person that wrote that particular letter.
Yeah, OK. Well, let's hope it all turns out for the best. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, do keep trying if you still have information that you feel might be useful. The lines here are still going to be open. They're open till midnight, and we'll give you local police numbers in just a moment. You can always write to us, or if all else fails, you can tell your local police. And if you get a chance to watch the box at noon tomorrow, there'll be more news on Daytime Live and any overnight developments then.
We'll be back a month from now. Meantime, don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Good night.